All right, welcome back to the Franchise Ain't Dead podcast here on State of the Franchise Gaming. And today I am going to be giving you guys the details that I just finished up watching the franchise stream, give y'all everything that they have told us in the, hour or so, franchise video that they gave us. Let's get the cat out of the bag already. Online franchise is not coming to 26. They didn't start with that, but it was inserted in the middle when they had like a 2-minute time frame of like how they had a 2-minute time frame between they were like switching scenes, and they happened to just mention it. There is no online franchise. Let's get that out of the way. It's unfortunate. I don't know what to tell you. But some of the points of emphasis they touched on is they wanted to add layers of depth, which they felt would add a replayability that is including moves that enhance realism, that enhance the realism that you see in MLB. As close to what they possibly can. Brian, hey, what's going on, man? Appreciate you coming through. And that includes CPU moves. They wanted to give challenge from the CPU as some people crave it, like myself. I mention this in every chance that I can get. I mention it not just with MLB the Show, but it's all sports games. When it comes to things outside of gameplay, you have to add that challenge and that depth, because that challenge and that depth equals realism. And they even said it themselves. I forget who the dude is that I forget who the dude was that is in charge of franchise, but that is what he mentioned. They also are making some aspects simpler for newer players, but you can toggle those off if you do not want them. The first thing they mentioned was custom game entry, as it's been in the game since 21 or 22. It's used to give players the opportunity to play through multiple seasons. That is also the other thing. There's no season mode. At this point, it's been like 10 years. I don't think it's coming back. If you want to play a singular season, by all means, go for it. And that's that. They did heavily emphasize the fact that there is a new trade system, and in their own words, they are calling it the best in the MLB the Show's history. We're now moving on to year 21 of the series, at least in the show aspect. Remember, this series technically goes back to the PS1. I believe it was like 97, 96. I played like one or two of those at the time. Mr. Kuban 1 mentions position players still can't pitch in blowouts. We don't know that for sure, but I would highly expect that not to be the case. Unfortunately, that is one of the bigger things I've mentioned, is that if you want us to have two-way players, we should be able to not only put a pitcher into the lineup, but vice versa. It can't be a one-way street to be a two-way player, in my opinion. Like, you can do it in high school, you can do it in college. I did it in Little League. Like, it shouldn't be that difficult, and you shouldn't need to lose the DH in the process. But I'm going to jump back into the trade system. They've stated that the logic has been written from scratch, completely overhauled what has been the case for the last 20 other iterations, or however long they've actually had the set of logic, probably the past couple years, because that's been a talking point and not a huge emphasis where they'd be like, oh, we updated trade logic, and it's like, I don't see it. They recognize that trading has been too easy and is now more risk and reward. There's no more hand holding for trades. So that little bar you used to see, it is FOH. It is up out of here. We don't have to see it. You will get a text box that will show feedback from the opposing GMs, whether they like a trade, if there's a player that they are looking into. And Mr. Kuban, I'm going to touch on that. Do not, just hold on. Believe me, I got you. Trades are not going to be immediately accepted, and they stated they brought back pending offers, but I don't ever remember it being in the game. The dynamic trade block is going to be based off the organizational strategy. So are they rebuilding? Are they in the playoff race? Are they kind of middling and not exactly sure. And, the GMs will tell you who they are interested in. There will be rumors that will possibly coax you into making a move. So when you go to the trade screen, sorry, I didn't get any screenshots. I was too busy paying attention, watching, and I didn't want to take this. I didn't want this to last any longer than it needed to be to get the information out there. But no, they will coax you into making a move, and the GMs they'll crap on you if you send them an offer. They just like, yo, get out of my face with that move. And I like that. I want them to talk smack to me when I'm offering them some BS for a top flight player. The trade screen now is an up to 8 players per trade. That's 4 on each side. That's not 8 players on one side and 1 on the other, or 7 on one side and 1 on the other. It's 4 and 4. And I'm going to take it. I'm going to take it because, hey, I don't know how hard it is to program this kind of stuff. And this is a later point in my list, but they have updated the logic for star players and top prospects. So it's going to take more to get those guys. And that makes sense because it should be much harder to get a player. I don't know. Name a star player that does not have a trade clause, and you can probably fit that in there. Most superstar type players have a no trade clause. And Mr. Kuban, this is where the Pete Alonso, actually maybe not necessarily Pete Alonso, but there were other players that they showed a trade for utilizing 30-team control, and they just let the trades go through, just showing, how things operate. There were several players that got moved that shouldn't have been moved based off their contracts. And I can tell you this off the top of my head because I paid attention to this stuff. My Yankees dynasty is pretty much built on that. That's why I didn't trade players like Giancarlo Stanton and Garrett Cole and Carlos Rodon and Max Fried. And obviously Aaron Judge. I was never going to trade Aaron Judge, let's be honest. But I could do it in the other 10 iterations of the show that he's been in. Or, he just got his recent contract, so this is kind of a relatively new thing for his deal, or at least for his, situation. When you jump into the trades, you will get an idea of how the market is looking. So that is what the other teams across the league think of certain positions, the strength of different positions. Like, hey, this is a strong market for second baseman. It's a seller's market for second baseman. So if you have a second baseman that you want to get rid of, say I'm the Yankees and I want to let Jazz Chisholm go, even though in my series I had him playing center field for some of the series he played center field, some of it he was actually really towards the end of his tenure. Hopefully I'm not giving up anything in a future episode that I have not even put on the channel. But no, and for a little bit I had Jazz playing second base. I kind of just threw him where I needed him, and he even played somewhat in the corner outfield where it's not even a secondary position for him, but it was like a 1 or 2 game thing and not a big deal. David B. 524, maybe the CPU should make more untouchable players. And actually, this is the perfect time for me to actually read this off. Untouchables and trade targets, because there are 2 different sets of lists that you can set. You can have up to 20 players on either list. 20. So you got 20 untouchables and 20 guys you want to get rid of. And in a future episode, which should be right around the corner, right before MLB the Show 26 comes out, I will give you guys a full list of all players with no trade clause, whether they're full no trade clauses or they're limited no trade clauses. And those trade targets, secondary positions are absolutely factored into trades. They were never factored into it before. It was only primary position. That's why you would probably end up with some really wonky deals. Like, wait, why do I want this guy? This guy don't play over here. Why are you trying to offer him to me like that? Apparently is now no longer a thing. Secondary positions play a role. So teams will probably be a little bit more likely to accept a player that is utility and can fill a need and fits in their timeline. There's an updated trade urgency as you get closer to the deadline. So if you are not 30 team controlling it, which I may not 30 team control, or I may 30 team control in 26 and end up just letting the CPU do as much as they want and then take over a little bit here and there. Kind of like how I did for the first 6 years of the Yankees dynasty. Again, the series is not over yet. I know we are 2 weeks away from MLB the Show 26, but I'm not done yet. I still have several videos that I need to release, and they're going to come out like rapid fire over the next 2 weeks so that we can get to the end of said series. Trades will now be a back and forth, and teams will try to mislead you. That includes the rumors where they'll show little blurbs or think the tweets that were in 2K, and I believe maybe a little bit in Madden. I haven't played a Madden in a while. And yeah, the teams, it will now just not be an automatic thing. You'll send out an offer, and you might wait a couple days. You might wait a week or 2 weeks. And then, the team will tell you, hey, you know what? We don't like the deal you offered us. Here's a counter offer. There's also another thing they've included. Counter offers. When the CPU sends you something, you can either accept what they are offering you, counter that, or you can say, get out of my damn face. Now, as mentioned earlier by David, he did state the CPU make more players untouchable. And when they showcase the trades, despite 30 team control, and they did let just the other teams, including the team they were, showcasing, there were several players who got moved. Jacob deGrom, who has a full no trade clause. Matt Chapman got moved, who also has one. Willy Adames, his teammate, got moved. Corey Seager, though it is still not clear, almost 5 years or 6 years, 5 years after signing his big deal in Texas, he has a limited no trade clause, but we are not aware, as with most limited no trade clauses. I think this short list of 5 to 10 to maybe even 15 teams for some players, I think I lost my train of thought. No. There is no definitive list as to, hey, I don't want to go here, and here to add up to 5, 10, or 15 players. Brandon Woodruff also has a no trade clause, as well as Christian Yelich. Now, they did mention that when it comes to players who are in their walk year or in their walk year +1. So, if take Juan Soto and say I edited his contract to the 5 years that he is supposed to be on it. I know it's like a 15-year deal, but he has an opt-out after the 5th year of that deal. If I edited his contract to fit that year 4 and year 5, he could be traded if you're not controlling the Mets yourself. As for these questions, Birdstar Gaming, Jose Ramirez has a no trade clause. Yes, he does. He did have it before he signed the extension, and that obviously will roll into his new extension. Omar states, I wish they made accurate budget payroll for teams in franchise. He plays with the Rays, and he can get the player payroll up to $250 per year, which he states the Rays would never do in real life. I understand what you're saying, Omar, and while the ownership may not do that, I can understand why they will leave that to our own devices. Maybe a future feature of sorts, this wouldn't be something you'd put on the front of the cover. You can have it where the owner will give you feedback as to, hey, I ain't trying to go over 100 million this year. Now, that may not gel well if you know anything about the CBA, and a lot of fans are looking for things like a cap, which I don't think they need, and I don't think they'll get, a floor, which they could use, but I don't think there's a really solid enough number that would really make a lot of these teams spend where it makes sense. But it is what it is. But yeah, they leave it to our own devices, and I get that. Mr. Kuban states that no trade clauses are not baked into the game. No, they aren't, and I can understand why they aren't. You can jump into any sports franchise game out now, probably even out of the park baseball also, and other straight sim type sports games, and you're not going to end up with no trade clauses. Well, I know NBA 2K has them, but I don't know how often the CPU teams will adhere to that per se. But that is something I absolutely am going to be hanging on to, because again, I don't want to see certain players move if it just doesn't make sense to move. And I do have a bit of a system that, while we didn't see it in the Yankees dynasty, somehow we never saw it in the Yankees dynasty. I don't think there was any player with a no trade clause that the random number generation that I have allowed for them to move. But you never know. Things could happen different in 26. For some more on the field stuff, or really before you jump into the game, they have stated, as they mentioned back, I believe in week 1, lineup logic is now going to follow new trends. Your best hitter is going to be hitting 2 or 3. And your leadoff hitter is going to be the projected, because I would assume this might be different for, if you're just starting a franchise, or if you got a custom roster. Leadoff player is going to be based off the best OBP player, and position does not matter. I think in the previous years, you'd see guys like second baseman and shortstops, guys with some speed. According to old school logic, this is where they would be set up as the leadoff guy. Performance is going to matter for the lineup, including previous MLB seasons, and it's weighted on a 3-year WAR scale. With 3 years back, it's not going to weigh as much as the year before. It's not going to weigh as much as last year. And lineups will shift as needed, and CPU teams, all of this really kind of plays into it. The CPU will weigh offense versus defensive liabilities. So, if you plan on playing with the Yankees in 26, Giancarlo Stanton, despite the fact he played some outfield in 25, which still blows my mind. I mean, I knew he had an arm, but he didn't have much range, but he was able to get to balls. He didn't hurt himself somehow. I don't think in 26 you're going to see him playing outfield very often. He's going to be stuck at DH, though there is nothing to stick him to DH, in case y'all needed to know. Also, probably one of the biggest things that they have updated is now the bullpen logic. You can now have bullpen games from not only yourself, but the CPU. And this is determined based off a couple of factors. Short-term injuries can cause a BP game, and they have it in the pitching rotation, where you can just set bullpen game at a certain starter mark. So if you want to put it at the first spot, you can put it there. You put it at the 5th spot, you can put it there. This bullpen logic for a BP game also incorporates lack of quality. They showcase the Angels starting pitching, and I'm going to roughly assume right now that if you don't have a starter with an overall of about 80, the CPU, if they operated on their own devices, they would put, we don't have the quality, so we just going to throw in bullpen game as one of the quote unquote players. If starting pitchers are gassed, so if you've been running down your starters, take for instance, there's an episode in my Yankees dynasty where we went 25 innings in a playoff game. 25 innings. It was 1-1 for 16 innings. I wish I were kidding. The episode is on the channel. Watch it. It's maybe 45 minutes long, but it took me like 4 hours to play that game. I thought I was in 1997. Let's see. Anything, and they base the premise off of anything that the user can do, the CPU can do. Because, by the way, this is the channel's 5th anniversary. Run up them subs. I'm still trying to get to 1,000 subs. Like that ain't went nowhere. It's just I don't mention it. One of the early series, and one of the series I thought I would make a thing, and I just never got to it, is having all of my pitchers be either relievers or starters. I called it the Kings of Clutch series. It might be on the channel in some capacity unless I unlisted it. But yeah, they will have it where the CPU will choose a bullpen opener based off of in real life managerial logic. I love baseball. I've watched it for over 30 years. I don't know what the hell that means. I'm assuming the logic is going to be based off, again, the 3 things I mentioned: short-term injury, lack of quality, and if either the rest of your starters are gassed, or the upcoming starter is gassed, or a relief pitcher just might have better stuff than, say, your 4 or 5 pitcher. This will allow relief, and they also mentioned how they have tweaked the reliever logic in terms of if they haven't pitched for very long, they will throw a closer out there, just to get some work in so that they are still, I guess, warm in a sense, so they can get into spots where they can get work in. Closing pitchers and setups will play in high leverage situations almost regardless of the inning, though it's going to typically slot in as the 7th inning or later. They will look at skill, workload / the usage, as well as rest, and they'll take a look at handedness matchups, because if you know, the new attributes that they have added are versus righty and versus lefties as far as pitchers are concerned. So you get the batters righties versus lefties and the pitchers righties versus lefties. If they wanted to take that one step further, with them adding usage, you could have it where certain pitchers are not going to throw certain pitches against specific handed batters. You might not, as a righty, I might not throw a slider to a lefty because they can see the break and they're probably going to clobber it, as opposed to, I don't know, maybe throwing them an inside sinker or something. David, as you mentioned, we can make certain players openers if you choose to go with an opener in a game. Now, not even sometimes, just because you set a pitching spot, probably due to stamina as a bullpen game, it may not always, or at least in the CPU's sense, they may not always put a reliever out there to start the game. Also, they mentioned towards the end about Streamline Franchise. I don't know if y'all know, but about 3 weeks ago, I remember them saying, "Oh, we talking about Streamline Franchise," and I was like, "What in the hell are you guys doing?" Turns out it is nowhere near as bad as I thought. In fact, I don't know if they really changed much, but I'm going to talk about it anyway. It was all about accessibility and the fact that franchise can be overwhelming for new users, especially considering this is an almost 200 game, it can be an almost 200 game season. And without season mode, and though we can use custom game entry, they have, added some things that just make it a little easier. You can have it where you can put everything on full control, or where you just toggle a button and it says full control, and you can individually set different settings for what you want automated. Or you can have it where it's just streamlined, where there's certain things you will take care of, and other things you won't have to deal with. Again, They added to the trade. They added to the trade block. I don't know if this was just something that was streamlined franchise or just in general. I think this was more in general. As I mentioned earlier, they made it a little bit easier to add players to the trade block, and it is very easy to add a player to the untouchables list. So that will not be a problem. I did ask a question in the YouTube stream, but I guess they don't pay attention to YouTube, and I feel like signing into Twitch. But I would have liked to have seen more or less. Oh, damn, I lost my train of thought. It's all good. Whatever. Anyways, regression logic. They mentioned this for like 30 seconds. They have updated regression logic, which is something I don't know if anybody really caught. But they have updated regression logic to allow for slower regression if a player is playing at, and this is their own words, all-star level or at potential level or better. Cool. I'm down with that. Maybe it was already in there, though a bit more randomized in 25 and 24 and some of the other years. Actually, really all throughout MLB The Show. Because I remember back in some of the PS3, PS2 era MLB The Shows, there'd be players that are like 36, 37, 38, almost 40, if not 40, where they'll be a high overall player and still be able to play well. Which, you know, maybe they put greater emphasis on this so that guys just don't tank, or they do not tank as much, which is a W in my opinion. Some of y'all are not gonna like this. I love this. The head dev of franchise stated they have figured out the generational scouting meta, and they have fucking got rid of it. Good, because it should not be easy to find top players that easily. It really shouldn't. You know, I understand how that might be fun to some people, but some of the best fun I've had is taking C and D potential players, and we are ravished in injuries, or I ain't really got nobody else, and I did not feel like, you know, signing anybody in free agency, or the free agency pool just didn't look that good. And I'd take a C or D potential player and be like, yo, or a low overall player and be like, yo, you got to play. And they play well. So, yeah, they have gotten rid of the generational scouted player meta, and they've gotten rid of it where if you look at specific different things, I don't remember what it was. I've watched like 2 or 3 videos about it, and it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense to me, especially considering how scouting is. And, you know, your scouts' ratings should matter as to how well they are able to figure out how good a player is, with some misdirection where, listen, they might have thought this player was really good, and they're all right. This is for you, Charm City Entertainment. They have put the pitching energy on the rotation screen. You no longer have to worry about, hey, is this guy even ready to pitch? They've done that for you, specifically for you, my brother. And apparently they have stated they have updated Hall of Fame logic. I don't know what the hell that is, because I've seen several players that look like they probably would be close to the Hall of Fame. I would like to think they have made it maybe a little bit easier for some players to get in, which I think would make more sense as opposed to what it's probably been for the last 20 years, where I've seen, even in my own saves, there are players that have hit 500 homers, not including Giancarlo Stanton, and they will they won't make the Hall of Fame. You can break the all-time saves record and you still will not make the Hall of Fame. And that is everything that I have found, or that I, took notes on about the franchise stream. Now, getting to some of these questions. I'm sorry, Charm City, that I mentioned 1997 like it was a long time ago. Sir, it was. As a matter of fact, looking at the bottom right corner of my computer, it is a very long time ago, and even I don't want to think about it either. David 11 to Goat says he didn't see any significant changes that came from the feature premiere. He states that trade logic is busted to trade George Lombard Jr. straight up for Adames, and Pete Alonso was traded too. First off, I'm going to state one thing. Pete Alonso, absolute Ooh, wait a minute. Hold up. Wait. Let me make 100% sure that I am not talking out of my ass. I currently have Cott's baseball contracts up right now, and I'm going to see if Pete Alonso has a no trade clause since he is going to, who is it? Okay. Pete Alonso on his current deal with the Orioles, 5 years, $155 million, ending after the 2030 season. He has a limited no trade clause, allowing Alonso to block deals to 8 clubs. So in a sense, he has a no trade clause. So I understand why you wouldn't think that he should be traded, but he absolutely can get traded to 30 minus 8, 22 other teams without his say. Though I'm sure he's got a list. He's already given it to the Orioles brass, and maybe that changes over the next couple years. So what I would say you do is go into 30-team control, make him an untouchable. Or, make him an untouchable, and then go to like a random list generator, and every time, or maybe the top 8 teams on that list, or every time you roll through it, and you get a different team, those 8 teams are the teams they can't get traded for the 26 through 30 seasons, and you can change that up every year. That's something I do. Now, touching the George Lombardi Jr. trade for Adames straight up, I don't think that's a broken trade outside of one key point. Willie Adames has a full no trade clause. There's a full no trade clause. Now, if you don't like San Francisco, sure, it's not out of the realm of possibility. I mean, Adames is what? 20... how old is he? I think last I looked, he's like 28, 29. Let me see. Baseball Reference. What is he? He's 30. He is 30 and will be 31 in September. So, again, it's not that crazy of a deal for a team that is win now like the Yankees are. I don't think the Giants are necessarily win now. They have good pieces, but given the rest of it, and don't get me wrong, they could win the division. The Dodgers could just be like, we don't care about the regular season. We'll just make sure, like they did last year, we don't really, we'll win our games or whatever. Like, we're better than most of the teams in the league. We'll win our games and then, make sure that all our top players are healthy for the playoffs. And that's why that's why they made the run that they ran the last 2 years. And that also, and hell, they almost, they were this close to losing in the World Series. Like, Rogers Center was freaking on fire. I don't know if I've heard a crowd that loud. Now, granted, it does have, a roof. So, but David, I definitely get your point about that trade. Whether you think significant changes came or not, I mean, I get it. I think bullpen logic has been bitched and complained about for so long that I think we got to give them some breather room to be like, all right, let's see if this actually works in the way that they say it does. Now, some of that is subjective. Maybe we still have, long relievers. I don't want to say going too long because every year will be a solid handful, maybe 2 handfuls of pitchers that will pitch upwards of 100 and 110 innings, and it's not out of the realm of possibility. David also mentioned that he didn't see any updates to contracts either. They showed no contracts. They showed absolutely no contracts, so we have no idea. And the trading systems feels useless if players don't make much notable progress. I'm going to counter on that because you can practice your ass off and not actually get any better. And I'm okay with it not 100% working. Unlike, say, a Madden, where like Madden has it where, you can train, or maybe not train, you can put points into different archetypes to make a player better. I feel like training, and I've meant to record this. As a matter of fact, I probably will at some point within the next like 2 or 3 weeks. I've been wanting to talk about the training system and how I've never felt like it works. There have been so many people that I've seen on Reddit, talked to in person, Operation Sports out the yin yang. They will tell you, hey, if you just toggle through things every month, it'll upgrade different things. Fam, that's not how it works. I'm telling you, I've been around this game for 20 going on 21 years now. Training has no rhyme or reason. You cannot tell me you have figured out unless you have sat there and tried to run an experiment with like really, really significant and like strict parameters, because performance matters in why a player goes up in attributes. When it comes to training, again, I'm going to address this in a future episode. It needs to be two things, or really three. Performance is performance. Training, if you get better at something about training, I feel like any increases should be temporary. And maybe you take the system from Road to the Show where maybe there's a goal or something you got to hit. Now, I don't like that because Madden has that and it makes it feel like you might be force feeding it, but baseball is just a little bit different in that you may only get 3 or 4 plate appearances. You might only pitch 7, anywhere from 4 to 7 to maybe 8 innings. And maybe your pitcher just can't take it. Hell, say they want you, if you want to increase your Ks per 9, 3, 4, 5 points, then have it where, all right, over your next 3 starts, you got to get 21 strikeouts. Your Ks per 9 on the season, or said player's Ks per 9 in the season is, I don't know, 5 a game, 5 per 9. You get 5 Ks per 9. You're not striking out a lot of guys. You might not be giving up a lot of hits, but you don't have the ability to strike out a lot of guys. Maybe you get lucky over the next 3 starts and you run into 3 teams that just are whiffing left, right, and center. But I don't want it to feel like I have to force it. Though, we'll see. What was the other aspect I was going to mention? Oh, coaching. Your coaches need to be much more than, the arbitrary +1, -1, +3, -3 to specific attributes. They need to be like granular. They need to get down to the nitty gritty. And again, as I've played professional baseball spirits, the MPB Japanese baseball game, they get granular. They can get granular with some stuff. Maybe not the coaches, but with training. Where you can train a specific pitch's velocity, a specific pitch's break. You can learn a new pitch. You can take a pitch out of the repertoire. Like, you can learn to hit better. You can learn to butt better with any player. Any player. You can work on picking up a trait, or I guess in MLB the Show's case would be a quirk. You can remove, like, there's so many different, you can mold a player, or you can attempt to mold a player however you want. In MLB the Show, we just are not seeing that. Madden has it where you can, listen, let's be honest, I don't really care for Madden that much, but Madden at least has that. And as Justin mentions, MLB Power Pros, which runs off the same engine as PYS 2425, and really some of the other ones. I haven't played any other ones. 2425 is the latest, is the most recent one. I do not know if they're coming out with another one. They could, PYS 2627. But Justin mentions that you could teach pitchers certain pitches and it could pass or fail. A future short that is going to come out is, I've kind of touched back into playing Super Mega Baseball, and some of that training would make a little bit more sense, where there is like a percentage chance of something happening, and the player development options are not, they don't always become permanent. Like, some of those things are temporary. You can pick up a trait. Like, there are other games that SDS can learn from. And this is not me disparaging them. To be honest with you, I know I sound like I'm glazing. I really don't give a fuck if you think I am. But I think MLB The Show is pretty damn good at being transparent about most things. Are they transparent about everything? No. None of these damn game companies are. They're run by Sony. I mean, Sony give them a little bit more leeway than, say, Nintendo. David mentions how he agrees that teams should be able to set their own rotation. However, he thinks there should be an option for the user to do that. I believe they mentioned that only the CPU does that. No, we can set our own. Dude, you can set your own rotation now. You can set your rotation any previous MLB the Show. I don't know. Actually, no. I know of one way how they would have it where it might shift your rotation. If there's an injury, they might, or maybe you might skip over the prompt that allows you to either A, manually do it, or for them to automatically do it. If you allow the CPU to automatically do anything, they're going to do what the hell they want in the previous other iterations. I have always told people, do it yourself. It don't take more than 15 seconds to, move your rotation. And now that the energy is there, and now that bullpen games are a possibility where you can just throw it into the rotation, to essentially skip a start for a starter. Now I don't feel like this is any longer an option or any longer an issue. Justin mentions baseball is literally hot and cold sport compared to other games. And that's 100% true. We've seen it. Hell, I've seen it over the last 30 years. Like, a player could be cooking for the first 2 months, and then you don't hear from them again for the next 4. And there's always the ebbs and flows of baseball. Like, I know the Diamond Dynasty community hates this shit, and I know some people, hell, that just play the game in general, hate that. If you hit a perfect, they feel like it should be a home run every time. That's not how it works. Barry Bonds is probably squared up more balls than anybody. He only has 762 homers. Yes, I understand he's highly alleged to have been on the juice. You still got to put bat on ball. You still got to blast that shit out of here. With that being said, I need to finish. What episode is it? I think my Yankees dynasty is in the playoffs or maybe not. No, the 2034 season is on its way. Given the timeline of MLB the Show coming out in 2 weeks, this season is going to be the last. Let's see how things play out, or you will see how things play out if you like, share, subscribe, leave me a comment, all that good stuff. I will holler at y'all later. Peace out.